Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend Bobby. I'm the senior minister and spiritual leader of the newly created Namaste and Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living. And the amazing Reverend John De Palma's here. And I'm going to ask John to talk about who he is in this whole idea of creation.
Hi, I'm Reverend John, and I started out as interim minister for Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living almost 2 years ago in November. And we looked at possibility of candidating or collaborating, and we've both found a similar connection with the Namaste Center for Spiritual Living, and we started to collaborate, and we decided that we were moving forward in this collaboration to look at how to transform and do things differently in terms of church.
So as what John's mentioned is these two communities have come together, one in Long Beach, one in Seal Beach, California, and we're decided to unify as one. And so John and I are working together on the spiritual programming. And we thought what we'd love to do is to come together as both some support from John, from his amazing organizational design and evolving spiritual evolution with respect to communities, and bring that together and see how we can do this in the communities that have come together. So what John and I talked about doing is having these conversations that are going to be in the newsletter and links on the website with respect to supporting this effort from weekly messages that can support this evolutionary process that's happening through the chrysalis. And we're going to be having conversations about values and about what it means to evolve and what we can do both at different places within the community, as ministers, as practitioners, as community members. If you're new, what is this all about? And so we just welcome you to this conversation. So John, on Sunday, we had I gave a talk on Sunday about pain times resistance equals suffering. And there were some interesting responses to that. And I thought I thought we could talk a little bit. We both agreed this might be a great place to start about what this pain times resistance equals suffering might mean. So I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about sort of what that meant for you.
Well, when we talk about cultural transformation, what do we mean by transformation? What do we mean by culture? Who's got to make this transformation? And so that brings up that point of how do we heal if we're looking at pain plus resistance equals suffering? Well, what do we call pain? What do we call resistance? Because we do know what suffering is. We've all experienced that to some level or another. And many of us are done with it and want to see changes in our life that kind of mitigate the suffering that seems inevitable. And so when we look at this idea of pain and resistance means we don't want to change. So it means that we're attached to something somewhere, somehow, that we aren't accepting in our experience.
So your resistance could be the pattern in which you address the pain that you're experiencing in your life. What's my pattern? And my pattern might be avoidance, and my pattern might be to avert. My pattern might be that I look outside of me as if outside of me is the place in which it must be resolved. So, in our philosophy, it's the conditions are what we may think the conditions are what making me where that's part of the suffering, which is really my perspective or my way of dealing with the conditions outside of me. So I always say, a leak in the attic can mean a flood in the basement, which is if I'm not looking at what's happening in my life, aware of the way in which I'm addressing it, that's actually contributing to my resistance by looking everywhere except how am I dealing with this?
Well, and there are so many opportunities in our culture for experiencing that. We animate all of these conditions with our energy. And so if we're politically triggered by something, well, how much of the news do we immerse ourselves in? And what happens then is, because we're immersed in this, our energy level gets to a point where we just cannot deal with anything else, and we experience pain. And so we have to be able to look at very clearly, whether it's politics or whether it's our family, what is our expectation, and how do we energize that with our attachment to how things should be?
And so as a community, we've picked these 4 values, and we've been dialoguing, starting with safety and our values of safety, extraordinary respect, compassion, accountability. We've been dialoguing about safety. And oftentimes, just an example, and we're just going to kind of touch on this today and really just do a couple minutes more of this, which is safety starts with what I think is safe inside of me, how I'm responding when I'm safe, and how I'm mostly responding when unconsciously I don't feel safe, which could be just my own loop and reaction. That, what am I animating? What am I giving the power to? And so we're going to be exploring these values in the context of the chrysalis and this evolving community, and how we can address this. John, do you want to say something sort of with respect to that as we go forward, which is today, of course, our introduction to these conversations we're going to have?
Well, it really involves a dynamic of looking at ourselves and being willing to look honestly at what's going on within us. So when Reverend Bobby talks about safety, I may react differently about that safety. And right away, we can say, well, that's not safe for me. And so we have to be willing to surface these issues that go to the heart of this transformation. And as we move forward, we're going to be looking at, as Reverend Bobby said, all of these other values to see if they're clear and how we can make them clearer as a community to come together in a way that we can work together.
So in the fall, we're bringing back 4 agreements. So if you're a member of or a congregant that keeps attending this new community that we're creating, we invite you to get into the 4 agreements. We're also going to be offering mindfulness again beginning in September. These are the tools that we're going to get to use to bring an awareness to our experience, so that we know that everything starts here. Everything starts within me. My discomfort starts within me. My idea of safety starts within me. So this opportunity, if you're engaged here, whether even if you're new, we're going to bring some opportunities for you to explore self-awareness, to bring yourself into the experience. And there's that song that's I'm Waiting on the World to Change by John Mayer, which is, if I'm waiting for the world to change, it won't, because I have to first bring that awareness here. So
we're the ones we're waiting for.
We're the ones we're waiting for. So this is really exciting that we get to explore this weekly. So look for these links in the newsletter and take a look at the videos. And let's—
Thank you, Reverend Bobby.
Thank you, John. I'm excited about doing this with you. And I'm just really hopeful about what we're bringing, which is, we're not fixing, we're not changing. We're exploring how we can be in it and be open to the change that's already happening.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.